CD number 8.
You see, that's a good example of a Sahabi using this principle in usul, which is to take the lesser of two evils. He needs to divert Omar. And so he's saying, well, first take care of your own family. Go, your sister Fatima and her husband Sa'id are Muslims. What? This is the first he's heard of it. Boom, he sets off for their house. Khabbab is there teaching them from Surah Taha, which has just been revealed. Here's an interesting proof that these Sahaba were learning everything. This was the latest revelation. There they were in their houses studying. So they're devoted to studying what's being revealed to them. Here's a strong proof that this is what they were doing. Right? He goes to the house and Khabbab hides. Sa'id, she tucks the parchment under to hide it from him. And Sa'id's, they're very nervous. Omar's known for his temper. He's really upset. What were you reading? And she says, nothing. I know you're reading. What was it? Give it to me. She's upset. He slaps her, causes some blood to come. Here's a sign also that Omar he's a compassionate man. He's not a bad man, but he's got a really bad temper. And he knows he's done something wrong. And that's his sense of justice. I shouldn't have done that. And that's obviously what a lot of people with anger, with tempers do, that are good people at heart. They feel bad after they lose their temper. So this is what he's done. And then he wants to see it. She says, you can't, you're unclean, go do wudu. So he teaches, tells him how to wash. He reads it, and he says, Wallahi, there's nothing like this. And then Khabbab now comes out, says, SubhanAllah, I heard the Prophet make a dua to make you a Muslim. Right? And so he says, well, let me go to him. So they go, and Hamza's there. They're in the house of Arqam. Hamza's there. They knock, and they're saying, it's Omar. He's got a sword. Hamza's not worried. He's older man. He's much more adept at fighting. And he says, let him in. If he wants a war, we'll give him a war. If he wants peace, we'll give him peace. And he says, I'll kill him with his own sword. Right? So he comes in and he sees the Prophet ﷺ and he becomes Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ says, Allahumma sharah sadrahu lil Islam. And Sayyidina Umar immediately, he goes out, he thinks, who is the worst person that I can think of against this? And it's his own maternal uncle, Abu Jahl. So he goes right to his door, knock, knock, knock. Abu Jahl opens it. Ya Ibn Ukhti, son of my daughter, the Omar, up-and-coming hater of Muslims. Right? Abu Jahl sees him as he's going to be a good ally for them. He says, what news do you have, right? I just wanted to tell you, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu Muhammad Rasulullah. Allah curse you and curse your greeting, slams the door in his face. He goes to the masjid, prays at Kaaba, tells Hamza, let's go down there. Were they going to pick on us? Right? And so he's going down. Now, obviously, the Muslims feel good about this. It's something now. Here, we're in big trouble, right? This is what the Quraysh are thinking. Our young up-and-coming leaders now are becoming Muslim. So Abu Jahl decides, 40 Quraysh signed to it, we're going to ban, and this is important because like Iraq, this is an old technique, right? To have on people, to place on them these type of constraints, right? To quarantine the people, hisar, to give them, just like they're doing now. And this is an old technique. And it's also a technique of the Dajjal. Whoever doesn't follow him, he puts sanctions on them. Something the Dajjal does. If you're not with him, you don't eat. Very interesting, right? And it's interesting now to note that over 80% of all the grain is in the hands of 6 corporations. And what they're doing now is their biotechnology now. They're developing seeds that will only produce one time. So when you buy the seed, right, you'll only get one crop from it. So in other words, farmers will be completely dependent on these corporations for providing them with seeds, right? And one of the things about this country people don't realize, between 1981 and 1995, over 1 million farmers have lost their land. Small farmers. 1 million. small farms, gone. It's all agro-business. And the next wave is bioengineering. So that's what they're all doing now. They're working on all these grains that they can control. So this is an old game. And this is what they do. And because they're doing this, there's some of the Quraysh they don't like this. And then the other thing to remember is this is not just Bani Hashim, it's Bani Hashim's wives. And the wives are often, they're Sahmites, they're Shamsites, they're Makhzumiyah, they're from different tribes. Khadija herself is from Asad, right? And this is why when her nephew goes to bring the grain and Abu Jahl finds him, where are you going? When Abu Bakhtari comes, he's an Asadi, he said, what's it to you? He's taken grain to his aunt. That has nothing to do with you. In other words, the ban's against Bani Hashim. It's not against the Asads. What's it to you? And Abu Jahl says, what are you in on this for? This doesn't have. He's an Asadi. Boom. He picks up a piece of bone and smashes it over Abu Jahl's head. Hamza comes by and obviously he's delighted, right? But the point is, there's a lot of tension now. It's not just amongst the Muslims against the mushriks. The mushrikeen are starting to fall apart, right? So there's real tension going on, and this is what's going on. For 3 years, this ban starts in the 7th year of Hijrah, of the Ba'tha, and it's going to go to the 10th year. Some say 2.5 years, but it goes on for a long time. And they have to eat at a certain point. Bani Hashim's eating leaves from trees and shrubbery outside of Mecca. So they're really suffering. And the people that are with them are suffering. And Abu Bakr during this time loses all his money. He was a wealthy man, and he's just spending it for the sake of Allah. What would happen is when the caravans come in, the Muslims would come to buy things. Abu Lahab would be there, who's a Hashimi, but went with his cohorts. He went against his own family, Bani Hashim. He went with his cohorts. He tells them, no, raise the price. So they raise the price so high that the Muslims that are not Hashemites can't even buy them because most of them are poor. For more so this is a very serious time for the Muslims that's going on. And one of the things that happens at a certain point, and this comes from Hisham, who goes to Abu Bakhtari. And he tells him, we don't like this thing, what's going on. This is wrong. And they said, well, what can we do? You're only one person. He said, well, be with me. He said, well, we need somebody else. So they say, well, let's go to somebody else. And they go to Mut'im and then Zam'a. So they get 5 of them all together. And it's really kind of a conspiracy amongst them to go. They go and they confront Abu Jahl with this. And they say, listen, it's time to end this thing. We're against it. This is wrong. We weren't for it in the first place. They're calling each other liars in front of the Kaaba. Mut'im actually goes into the Kaaba and pulls out the oath that they all signed. And it said, Bismihi ta'ala was how it began. The worms have eaten it. The arada, the termites have eaten it. And all that's left is Bismihi ta'ala. That's all that was left on it. So when he pulls it out, and that's all that's left, it's been eaten, they all take that as an omen now. Because they're people that did believe in signs and divination and these type things. So they take it as an omen. Yeah, you're right, we should end this thing. They decide to end it. And there's another story in which the Prophet actually told Abu Talib, because he was so distressed by this. His whole tribe is being sanctioned by the rest of Quraysh. So he's distressed. He's a leader of Quraysh. And his own brother, now, Abu Lahab. So the Prophet ﷺ tells him that what they signed, Allah has shown me that it's been completely destroyed, except for his name. And Abu Talib calls some of the leaders of Quraysh together and says, my nephew has told me this. Now why don't you just go see for yourselves, and if it's true, then you should believe in him. And so they go and they see that it was eaten, like the Prophet ﷺ, they said, and they just again ridiculed the Prophet ﷺ and rejected that. So they again ask him for more compromise, and قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ is revealed. That's it. لَكُمْ دِينُكُمْ وَلِيَ دِينِ. there's no debate. So that's where we got to so far. Are there any questions about any of that?
Something about Jews were not Jewish in the section about it.
Right.
You said something about them being jinn. Is that?
Some say that they're jinn. There's a difference of opinion about that.
Point of clarification. Did you say the Surah Capital was revealed at that time?
Yeah. It was actually revealed when they asked to share the deens. So Allah said, Lakum dinukum waliya din.
The letter to the Muslim guys, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, did that come before they made hijrah to Ethiopia or after?
There were two groups that go, and the Prophet ﷺ did send a letter to Najashi.
This was before, or which one was first?
The hijrah would have been first, but I'm sure, I don't know, but I'm sure the Prophet ﷺ would have sent a message, greeting. I mean, that would have been protocol.
Also, within that letter, he refers to, let's say, the Maryam radiallahu anhu as Ruhullah.
Ruhullah, that's one of the names of Isa alayhi salam. But that's, Khomeini, it was the middle name of Ayatollah Khomeini, Ruhullah. It means it's a ruh belonging to Allah, like Abdullah. In other words, it's mudaf ilay. When you say Ruhullahi, it's possessive. It doesn't mean Allah's ruh. It means the ruh that belongs to Allah. Because you can use the idafa both ways. You see what I mean? Yeah.
He also mentioned about Waraqa coming.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where he got that. There's probably a source for that. Waraqa dies very shortly after the beginning of the revelation. So.
Why did Najashi write on his paper? He was trying to hide his.
Because he was a king. He was a king, and it was a tawriya. It was a way of dealing with dissidents. He was a very wise man, and in Sharia, it's permissible in order to avoid fitna and to avoid bloodshed and these type things, to use tawriya, which is what he did. So it was obviously his call, in a sense. In other words, was there a benefit? Because he reminded them, have I been a just ruler? Is your life good under me? And they said, yes, absolutely. But he probably saw that if he came out, accepted the Prophet ﷺ openly, it would have led to a civil war. And that would have been worse than him concealing his iman. So that was a personal ijtihad from him. And that's something that Islam allows.